Okay, let's dig into this. We've got some really interesting material here today. It's all built around this, well, pretty captivating idea, living a life without limits.
hmm And even chasing global ascendancy. Those are definitely phrases that catch your eye.
They really do. And this deep dive, it's all about figuring out how someone might actually do that, at least according to the source material you shared. We're looking at documents from Ayland Global Solutions,
Right.
Citizenship Residency and Elite Wealth Services.
Exactly. And our job here really is just to stick to what this material says. We want to understand what Ayland is putting out there, how they sort of position themselves.
Right, as partners for these specific groups they mentioned.
Yeah, high net worth individuals, entrepreneurs they call forward thinking, and these internationally mobile families. It's about how Ayland sees itself helping them navigate, the global landscape.
Okay. So we're basically mapping out the strategies and the pathways Aylin talks about for, let's say, global mobility and maybe optimizing wealth, all through their specific lens.
Precisely. Just exploring the services, the philosophy, everything laid out in their own documentation, nothing more.
So first things first, then, who exactly is Ayland? And maybe more to the point, who are they really setting themselves up to help based on this source?
Well, the material is pretty direct about that. They explicitly say they're a partner for, like we said, high net worth folks, entrepreneurs with that global mindset, and families already moving around the world or thinking about it.
It sounds like an audience that's already, operating on a global level or wants to be.
Exactly. They're not starting from scratch, conceptually.
In the documents, they highlight this guidance from a seasoned Swiss economist. What's the angle there, according to the source?
It seems like they're using that to signal a certain kind of rigor, suggesting their services are built on solid economic insights, structural integrity. Gives it a bit of weight.
A sense of stability, perhaps?
Yeah, potentially. And they also talk about having a physical presence, boots on the ground.
Whereabouts?
They list key spots, the Caribbean, Europe, the Gulf, and Latin America.
Yeah.
So that reach seems pretty important to how they deliver these global solutions.
Okay, got it. So that's the who. Now let's get into the what, the core offerings. They really hammer home this idea that it's tailored, not just off-the-shelf stuff.
Yeah, that's a big point they make. They talk about personalized strategies, mixing international law, investment stuff, regulations.
Yeah.
It's presented as, a very custom journey for every client.
Right. And they break down the main services pretty clearly. First one up, citizenship by investment, CBI.
Right. So this, as they describe it, is basically a fast track to getting a second citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
The main document names Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, Grenada, St. Lucia.
Okay.
And then if you dig into the FAQ section, it adds Antigua and Barbuda to that list as well.
And Alan really points out some specific benefits for doing CBI through them. What are they pushing there?
Well, speed is one. The FAQ mentions it could be as quick as 3 to 6 months. But they also really emphasize things like massive visa-free travel potential. They quote numbers like 130 up to 160 countries.
That's a big number, very tangible.
Huge. And they mentioned including the whole family, plus the benefits for, tax optimization, securing assets. It ties right back to that life without limits hope.
Makes sense. Okay, so visa-free travel is a major piece of that global mobility. What's next? They have residency by investment, RBI.
Yeah, RBI. So according to Ayland, this is more about getting long-term residency rights in key places. They list the Schengen area in Europe, the UAE, Panama, and Greece.
And the FAQ adds more.
Adds Latvia, Slovakia, Austria, and Spain in Europe. So quite a few options there.
Okay, so if CBI gives you the passport, the citizenship, RBI is more about the right to actually live and maybe work in a certain place.
That's the gist of it. The advantages of landless are things like flexible residency rules, and they frame it as a potential stepping stone, maybe towards permanent residency or even citizenship eventually.
Ah,
And the entry routes are often tied to, like, starting a business or investing in real estate there. It's about getting strategic access, they say, to European markets or the Gulf or Latin America.
so how does the source itself draw the line between CBI and RBI? What's the core difference Aland highlights?
Well, they clarify that CBI is about the full citizenship, getting that passport. RBI, on the other hand, grants that long-term or permanent residency status.
So different tools for potentially different immediate goals.
Exactly. They frame RBI as maybe better for someone who needs that physical presence for business or lifestyle, and it can be part of a longer game towards citizenship. But CBI is the direct citizenship route. Both fit into a global plan, just different paths.
Got it. Okay, so beyond personal movement and living rights, they also talk about company formation.
Yep. And this clearly ties into that forward-thinking entrepreneur audience they mentioned. ALAN describes this service as helping set up companies that are, compliant internationally and efficient from a tax perspective.
What kind of companies?
They mention things like LLCs, IBCs, international business companies, or private limited entities.
And the benefits they list seem geared towards making it easier to set up shop globally.
Totally. They highlight quick setup, minimal capital needed sometimes, full legal help, operational flexibility.
And does setting up a company tie into residency sometimes?
Yes, they specifically note that it can make you eligible for residency or establish that necessary business presence.
Hmm.
It's positioned as a way to access global trade and, again, preserve wealth, according to ALAN's materials.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
And the last of these core services is global bank account establishment.
Right. This is presented pretty straightforwardly, helping clients set up secure bank accounts, often multi-currency, with major banks.
Which, I mean, if you're operating across borders or managing assets internationally, that's just fundamental, isn't it?
Absolutely essential. And the benefits listed are what you'd expect. Smooth international payments, integrating everything like payroll, investments, asset management, and, crucially, making sure it all meets global banking standards. It's like the financial plumbing for the whole strategy.
Okay, so those are the pillars. Passports, residency, setting up businesses, banking. But the material digs deeper into some specific investment and support mechanisms. They talk about something called A-land.
Yes, real estate investment via A-Land.
Yeah.
The documents call A-Land their own proprietary platform.
And what's its job in this whole setup?
Its stated purpose is basically to give clients access to what they call high-return real estate assets. And importantly, the source connects it directly to finding the property investments needed for some CBI or RBI programs.
Okay, so if your path involves buying property, this is their tool.
Exactly. But they also say it can be used just for standalone real estate investment goals, separate from citizenship or residency.
And what does A-land actually do for the client, according to the source?
It covers quite a bit. Finding properties in those places A-Land works in, handling all the due diligence and legal checks, doing market analysis and projecting returns, and managing the whole transaction and paperwork side, end to end. It's meant to be a full package for real estate within their system.
It definitely sounds like they're saying their involvement doesn't just stop once someone gets, say, their passport approved.
And no, they emphasize that. They talk about comprehensive post-approval support. This seems to cover things like guidance on keeping your residency status active, legal advice through this partner firm they mentioned, GH Legal SRO,
Okay.
and also help with the practicalities, like corporate maintenance for any companies set up, tax filings, staying compliant.
And you mentioned wealth preservation earlier. Does this post-approval support touch on that too?
Yes, the source specifically lists things like setting up trusts for asset protection and planning for passing wealth down through generations. So it definitely points towards managing and securing wealth long-term within this global framework.
Right. And one more piece of their support structure, worldwide issue resolution. What's that about?
Well, it sounds like an acknowledgement that, operating internationally can get complicated. Things can go wrong.
Sure.
So this service is described as helping clients deal with legal, financial, or regulatory problems that might pop up in any country they're involved with.
So kind of like a global fixer service?
That's the impression it gives. The material also mentions they offer consultations to try and head off risks before they happen and provide support for everything from growing a business internationally to needing legal defense.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground here, the services, the support systems A-Land describes. So pulling it all together, based only on what's in this source material, why choose A-Land? What are the key selling points, the stated differentiators they put forward?
The source lays out a few key ones. First, they circle back to tailored precision, really emphasizing again those custom strategies for mobility, tax, legacy planning, whatever the client needs.
Right, that bespoke approach again.
Exactly. Then there's global expertise. They highlight their reach. Across, they say, more than a dozen jurisdictions, mentioning those regions again. Caribbean, Europe, Middle East, Americas, and claim they have real-time knowledge of all the regulations.
And that Swiss leadership point comes up again here, too.
It does. They frame it as a differentiator, bringing, economic insight and structural integrity. They also list real estate mastery as a big plus, pointing specifically to that A-Land platform and their ability to find and manage those high ROI property deals.
Makes sense. And for people moving assets and personal info around the world, privacy must be a huge concern.
Absolutely. And they list confidential and compliant as another key differentiator, promising discretion and ensuring everything lines up legally across borders.
And last one.
Ongoing partnership. They position themselves as being there for the long haul, not just for the initial transaction, but committed to the client's success over time.
It paints a picture, certainly, of a very comprehensive, very strategically focused service for people looking to really build out a global life personally and financially.
That's definitely the narrative woven throughout all the material we looked at.
So if someone reads the source material or listens to us talk about it and thinks, okay, I want to explore this global freedom thing, what does Ayland say is the first step?
Well, they make it sound quite simple, actually. They present the start of that journey towards global ascendancy, as they put it, as just needing one conversation.
A single call or contact?
Seems like it. The source gives a direct phone number, +41 79 279 7979, and a website, immigration.a.land. The invitation basically is to reach out and start designing that future beyond borders with purpose.
Right. Well, this has been a really detailed look, sticking strictly to the provided source at what Ayland Global Solutions offers and how they present themselves. We've covered who they aim to serve, those core services like CBI and RBI, the support stuff like Ayland and issue resolution, and what they claim makes them different.
Yeah, all built around this central theme of enabling a life without limits, whether that means getting a second passport, setting up a business overseas, or making strategic property investments, all is laid out in their documents.
It certainly sketches out some very clear routes for individuals with, significant international goals, which does lead to maybe a final thought, something to chew on, sparked purely by the language in this source material itself.
Okay.
Ayland talks quite a bit about global ascendancy and building this life without limits. They frame it as strategically using borders, moving across them for prosperity, for security. So it makes you wonder, what does that kind of highly strategic cross-border approach to life, wealth, and security actually mean for our more traditional ideas? Ideas about home or national identity, or even just what it means to live a secure life today.
That's a deep question. The pathways described are practical, but the implications, based on how Ayland frames it, yeah, they definitely give you something to think about regarding how the world works for some people today.